I will never understand how the Pokemon community is this broken. After hundreds of fake leaks and being lied to for over a decade, people will still support fake leaks. I don't understand. So when Elon Musk first bought Twitter, he said a post is doing good if it has like a 1% like ratio, and if it gets higher than that, it's just like a cracked out post. So this is getting a good amount of likes, and it's just nonsense. It's the same lies from the same liars with the same fanfic posted to 4chan on the same fake leak. I don't understand. And then people are actually like commenting on it, even though it's completely worthless, and retweeting it and quoting it, and then just leaving a like because they want it to be real, even though none of these have ever been real. And then it gets really weird when Centro goes to other people's posts to call them fake, because that means it's stealing attention from Centro, even though Centro has posted like 100 fake leaks as well. Actually, if Centro's calling it fake, then that might actually be credibility for it being real. But with absolutely no Pokemon news, and this being the least amount of information we've pretty much ever had when it comes to new Pokemon games, let's see how bad the leaks are. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with friends, comment your thoughts down below. First half of August, Pokemon presentation. Not Chinese, the sources though. Well, calling it a Pokemon presentation, like, no, it's a Pokemon Presents. You can translate that yourself. And I would doubt that even like a Chinese leaker would call it Pokemon presentation. So like that's already bad. And then first half of August, giving yourself a generous window, even though it's like, wait a second, we just line this up with the Pokemon Legends Arceus trailer. New drops for Cafe, Unite, and Masters. Absolutely no reason to put that in the post, because every Pokemon Presents has had that for as long as those 3 games have been out. Pokemon Pinball and Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire will come to Switch Online alongside the presentation. So this one goes kinda deep, because before the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online, there was a data mine that had like a Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire test. And people were like, oh man, we're going to be getting that, and it's going to be like really cool if we get Virtual Console back for Pokemon games. That never happened, so yeah, every leak is going to try to propose this and be like, it's time we finally get Pokemon Pinball and Pokemon Pinball Ruby Sapphire. Pokemon TCG Pocket will release this fall, and that's the weird thing about not having any Pokemon news or Pokemon Presents in June, like what we saw with the announcement of Pokemon Unite and the Pokemon Presents before that. Like, the Pokemon company, not just Game Freak, has to be up to something, and no information on just like one trailer with Pokemon TCG Pocket. This is supposed to kind of be a big thing, where it's like, oh, we're going to Pokemon Go, the Pokemon TCG, because that's popping right now. You need more trailers, you need more interest, you need to actually like show people that the Pokemon company is trying to keep their community engaged. So yeah, releases this fall, whatever. New Team Rocket card set revealed. Dark Pokemon Return, special Giovanni Persian card exclusive to early TCG Pocket players. It goes into that thing of, oh, Pokemon TCG has never been revealed at a Pokemon Presents, but if it has like a Pokemon Pocket crossover, it also makes sense where it's like, oh yeah, Team Rocket, you're getting all those older players back, kind of like how Pokemon Go was meant to capture every Pokemon fan that's ever existed. And it actually did. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that, yo. That was really cool when the Rocket set came out. Now that gets me into TCG, and then there's exclusives and events and stuff going on that makes Pokemon TCG Pocket more enjoyable and engaging. And that's the interesting thing so far. This list hasn't been fake, it's just been a wish list. And if you pay attention, it's like, yeah, this stuff just kind of makes sense. But that's an interesting one. Every once in a while I get a fake leak that's like, ooh, they actually came up with a good idea that actually doesn't jump the shark and isn't completely stupid. XYZ Legends joined Pokemon Sleep. Yeah, we have legendary events and all kinds of events happening in Pokemon Sleep. 20 million downloads, game's doing alright. So, update on that, sure. Pokemon Horizons Mega Saga trailer. Pokemon Presents with Pokemon Horizons. Unless the Pokemon company is that desperate, where it's like, oh, Pokemon Presents is now everything Pokemon and not just the games. And that could be weird on an announcement, where this is one of those leaks we fall back on, where it's like, wait a second, that's kind of like hinting towards it in a weird way. It's where if they say like, oh, upcoming projects for like the entirety of the Pokemon franchise instead of just like games. Or the announcement actually says something like, we're going to do like TCG and anime announcements. Like, oh, that's kind of weird. Paradox Pokemon Invasion in Pokemon Go. I guess that's due. So, like, yeah, this is just, like, stuff that's due. But now it's like, this has to be too much for Pokemon Presents. But is it if we're waiting until August? And Pokemon Company is just tapped out until next February? God, it sucks being a Pokemon fan right now. This is all we got. Final segment is a brief ZA overview, mostly cinematic, few flashes of gameplay. So, just like how a gameplay announcement goes with the Pokemon Company, set more than a century after the events of X and Y. A legend that it takes place in the future after making up shit about Pokemon Legends Arceus in the past. Yep, I think this is where like the idiots that actually believe fake leaks, that think this game's happening in the future. Also, damn, what'd the Pokemon Company do to like de-rank themselves out of all searches? YouTube just broken. But yeah, the absolute state of the morons that actually follow fake leaks in the Pokemon community to think like, oh, it's happening in the future because it's showing us a 3D blueprint of exactly Lumiose. This is modern Lumiose as taken place in Pokemon X and Y. So if we have a redevelopment plan, that means we are building to the current Lumiose, which means this legend is taking place 20 to 40 years in the past. And we can even see, like, this is the plan. The plan is to have people and Pokemon living together, which is how it goes in Pokemon X and Y. That was a really big thing they wanted to emphasize for the transition to 3D for Pokemon. And, like, yeah, it's like, wow. This is like X and Y is what they're planning. The sitting planning wants this to be the reality. And then how much of the development are we a part of for the game? There's still way too many questions. Then that's when it's like, oh yeah, okay, never mind. It's like super duper mega fake because the idiot that made this up actually thinks it's taking place in the future. Quasar was founded shortly after X and Y has been researching integration of Pokemon in society. What? What? We already have that integration. Heavily in Galar, but it already existed for Pokemon X and Y. And that's kind of like the whole thing modern Pokemon has been trying to push for, is the interaction of people and Pokemon, and even bring it into the real world. But okay, Quasar director looks like female Colress, because all these morons know is fan service like was done in Pokemon Legends Arceus. There was nothing of depth. There was nothing of quality in Pokemon Legends, and it doesn't matter that you make up characters to make up lore, to throw away existing lore about Sinnoh in the past, because we already had Sinnoh folklore, just to cram in characters that make people go, ooh, especially when it's Generation 5 related, because all those Zoomers are just too stupid to understand how Pokemon's supposed to work. You can't say, oh, Gen 1 had so-and-so, so you can't say that against Generation 5, even though Generation 5 did it worse, and Generation 1 built Pokemon, and you can't call everyone a Gen 1er because they like Generation 3, 4, 6, 7 more.
Well, man, Colress's family lineage a century in the future is gonna matter.
Professor clearly takes after Clement Bonnie, hippie older man. Do we even need to read the rest of this now? Like, oh, you had us in the first half. Because, like, hey, again, it's one of those things where, like, oh, it's a plausible wish list instead of just garbage leaks. Releasing summer 2025. Again, because now we're just in fanfic territory where Pokemon games are not developed in a year. They are definitely given enough time. And adding more time to development wouldn't do anything to change it, and we also have multiple teams for Game Freak working on the games, so anyone that thinks like, oh, Game Freak needs to slow down the pace of games is objectively wrong, and just stupid. So right now, with like the release of Pokemon Legends ZA and the current news cycle, it's going to be pretty close to Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, I was surprised that they said like, Pokemon Legends Arceus coming out in the next year, and then it just came out in January. Like that, I'm not saying that was too soon and the game needed to be developed more, but I was like, wow. I was like shockingly quick release. I was expecting March. But so like, yeah, March game makes sense, but like summer, we're not going to get a main series Pokemon game released in June. You can't announce that in August, that there's not going to be a Pokemon game for the next 10 months. When we didn't have anything to supplement us through the summer anyways. Like, oh man, Pokemon TCG Pocket, like, nah, none of that tracks or makes sense. And like that, there we go. That's where the nonsense came through. Once you ran out of, like, the existing plausibility, where it's like, well, Pokemon Pinball might be due, you know, and it would be interesting for an actual TCG integration and a shift in Pokemon Presents to everything Pokemon, but then they just lost it. That's all. I plan to post again in January. Not my words. Conversation wasn't had in English. I was about to say the community hasn't been cool since Pokemon Sun and Moon, but that was just all fake leaks. And even though Pokemon Let's Go were incredible games, second best Pokemon games ever made, and even then, like, Sword and Shield, Scarlet Violet were still really good, the company let us down on the promotion, and then the community lets us down everywhere else because the Pokemon community is just rotten. Damn, nothing. Like, what? Like, the only thing I can have is, like, Nintendo Switch 2 needs to be purely unhackable, and then all these brats lose everything, and we get to rebuild Pokemon in, like, pure honest play, and then we get the Renaissance Golden Age like we saw with Pokemon X and Y for a brief moment. That's where we're at.